Good morning, everybody. So today is another rant. Said I was going to post one the other day, and well, I'm going to today. I am not feeling so great. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather right now, but I'm going to post a video anyway, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So today, I actually have a couple things that I wanted to discuss, and I was trying to figure out exactly what it is that I wanted to do. For the longest time, the only people that I've complained to about Andromeda are pretty much everybody I know, except for, putting it into a video and posting it on my channel. So that was something that I wanted to do, but the thing is that I may just want to reserve that for when I'm feeling a little bit better, because that's something that I'm seriously passionate about, and I do want to give it its, credit. There are a whole lot of reasons that I've come up with, and I would love to just share them with you when I'm feeling well. So for now, I think I'm going to talk about, let's see. Well, there was something that I have been noticing. So I've been watching a lot of the What Culture Gaming podcasts. So I've started writing for them, and I'll post my articles in the description if anybody has any interest in that. It's something, I've been watching What Culture for maybe a year or so now, and their whole thing just really interests me. I would love to do something like that someday. I'm so passionate about gaming and writing that I would, it would be so great to do that. So actually, the other thing is that I've been doing this YouTube thing for a little while now. I don't have a whole lot to show for it or anything like that, but I would like to start building a portfolio because, like I said, it is something that really interests me, and maybe one day I could make something out of it. But anyway, something that I was listening to earlier today, and I listened to it a bunch of times, and it's something that I've wanted to talk about, is the difference in opinion and, I guess, appeal between Fallout and Skyrim. So I wanted to just talk about that because although they're not exactly comparable in a lot of ways, I think that there are a lot of points that people forget about, that, I understand that it's an opinion of subjectivity, it's a very, very subjective thing, whether or not you like one or the other. But I do feel like it's something worth discussing because I feel like a lot of people might not. It's not something that a lot of people recognize. Like, personally, I don't really enjoy fantasy games. The only types of fantasy that I can get into are board games, because I can buy into that. Like, I would love to play like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. That would be really great. But the reason that Skyrim has never really sold it for me is because the reason that I play video games is definitely the escapism part, and I think most people would agree with me. But the thing about the whole escapism thing is that I need it to be plausible. Yes, I like the idea of, gallivanting off into a land that can't possibly exist, like, The Witcher or Skyrim or something like that. I can definitely appreciate it, and I can definitely appreciate the lore that goes into it. It's, the Witcher 3 lore is just so rich, and I know it's based off of Polish mythology. So yes, I can definitely respect that. I can love the crap out of a game without actually playing it. To be fair, I have played about 6 hours of The Witcher, and for the reasons that I'm about to give, I just couldn't get into it. So the thing for me is all about plausibility, like I said. So when I go into a video game, I like seeing history, I like seeing sci-fi, because there's a part of me that thinks that, oh, maybe this could happen someday, or maybe this has happened. So I get that appeal like a whole lot. There can be fantasy elements to it, but as long as they're kind of backed up by a physical sort of thing, and you are totally free to disagree with me, but I get really upset. I do get upset. I get upset when I see things that break the laws of physics. So that, I know, makes me sound like a total ass, but this is just the thing that I'm interested in. So, like Mass Effect is my favorite series of all time. And the thing that I love about that is the plausibility, like, oh, there might be aliens somewhere. There might actually be a way to bend space and time to be able to travel faster than the speed of light. So I like thinking of that because I love physics, and I love the idea of being able to not break the laws but bend them so that humanity or whatever civilization can advance forward. So that's what I love about the mass relays. Like there is some sort of physical basis for it. It's not like, oh, I'm just conjuring fire or something like that, which I know makes me sound really stupid because my friend brought up the other day when I told him about how I feel about this, he was like, yeah, but you like things like, you know, Avatar, like The Last Airbender and stuff like that. And I'm like, yes, I do, but it's because that whole story is almost like it has more of like a more of a cultural significance rather than the basis of being like, I don't know, like, and that's why I like things like The Witcher, is because it's based on folklore. It's based on something that, you know, people actually believed in. So like I can kind of get behind that, and I guess that is my explanation. I suppose my kind of explanation has a few holes in it because I love Zelda, and I love a lot of other things that have magic and stuff in them. But I guess like with the Zelda universe, you know, they've built it from the ground up, and you know, now that I'm saying this, it's like most things are built from the ground up. I don't know, it's just like I don't really enjoy Skyrim for that reason. Is it's not so much the magical aspect of it, because if it's a well-told story that has magic in it, something like Zelda or something like that, like I can get behind it. But when I think of things where there's no real basis for it, almost like there's no boundaries, you know, there's no boundaries for what a person in Skyrim can do. And maybe that's just my very uneducated view of the game, but it's like, oh, you can summon fire, oh, you can do blah blah blah. But it's like, even with The Witcher, like, because Geralt is a witcher and he's not like a sorceress like Yennefer is, there are certain things that he can do, but they don't extend to the things that Yennefer can do, because she can, you know, harness magic to make portals and stuff like that. So I don't know, I just feel like there should be a basis for the rules. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, because you can totally tell me that, like, oh, well, there are rules of the Elder Scrolls. Like, there are definitely set rules there, and there's a reason why you can and can't do this, this, and this. So maybe this is just my difference in opinion, really. If I'm just saying that if a world is well constructed, I can get behind it, but I guess my own thing is that I need to find some sort of plausibility in the things in the media that I consume. So, you know, as much as everybody likes Harry Potter because there's a part of it that's plausible. It's like, oh, well, within this world of people who are not magical, there is this community of magic people, and there's this whole thing for them, you know, within this world. And like the plausibility, like the thing that attracts you when you're a kid and you read Harry Potter, it's like, ooh, maybe like I could be one of those people. Like, you know, there are a whole bunch of memes and stuff about people that are like, oh, I'm waiting for my Hogwarts letter, like stuff like that, you know. So it's just about the plausibility of it. But I guess for me, like I said, you know, plausibility aside and like world building aside, like I said, if you know, the story is very well built. The problem for me with magic is that where is the limit? Because there's just like an arbitrary limit for magic. You can do anything with it. And I've heard arguments like this in the past, and I kind of tend to agree, because it's like, well, if a person is creating this world, right? You're creating this world, and there's no real physical reason for why you can't do a certain thing. So like, okay, with The Witcher, let's say, it's like, okay, Geralt is a witcher, you know, by definition, he is a witcher, he has all of these powers, he can do these certain things. But because Yennefer is a sorceress, she can do all kinds of other stuff. But it's like, you know, whoever created the world of The Witcher, you know, when CD Projekt Red, when they made the world of The Witcher, what is this arbitrary reason that Geralt can't do the things that Yennefer can do? There's no real reason other than like, oh, well, it's a good storyteller, like Yennefer is this specific type of person who has these specific powers, and I understand the narrative, you know, reason for that. It's just there's a part of my analytical mind, if you will, that is like, well, why, you know, like, and I mean, it's the same thing with any sort of fantasy, and maybe what I'm saying is a very flimsy argument, and that's okay, you can completely disagree with me, but I like the idea of fitting into something that could possibly exist. So, you know, if I were to place myself in the world of The Witcher, I can't possibly be anything except for probably just a peasant somewhere who doesn't have any magical powers. Like, I don't feel empowered to, like, say that I have these special powers, that I could be as powerful as Yennefer or something like that. Like, I don't feel that way. But if you insert yourself into a game like Mass Effect, even if you're not the chosen one, even if you're not Shepard, you can still be somebody who's like super cool. So, I mean, you know, it's stupid saying it that way, but I feel more at home in these sci-fi worlds, like in Fallout, where it's like, okay, maybe I'm not the Vault Dweller or anything like that, but I can be somebody who inhabits the world and can mold into it and blend into it without being the chosen one. And I don't mean the chosen one from Fallout 2. I literally just mean that trope of just being the one who's going to save everybody, you know. Fallout has, it's less like Mass Effect and stuff like that, and I'm actually not sure how it is in Skyrim or in the Elder Scrolls if you're just given the title of the one who will save us all. But I really like the idea of just being able to exist in the world without being somebody special. Like, essentially, you could be an NPC in these worlds, and that's what appeals to me about sci-fi, is that I don't have to try to imagine super hard who I would be if I were put into these worlds, like, just dropped in there, like, right now. You know, it's almost entitled the way that I'm saying it, but it's like, if I was dropped, like I said before, if I was dropped into the world of The Witcher, I would probably just be one of the dirty peasants that you see walking around. But if you drop me into somewhere like Mass Effect, I could be a resident on the Citadel. I could still experience the world without being a nobody, as ridiculous as it sounds. I could be a bartender at one of the bars. I could be a resident of the slums of Omega. Like, even then, you still get to experience this different world. Whereas, like, in The Witcher, and I guess, you know, now that I'm thinking of it, it might just be another instance of liking what you like, because if I were in The Witcher, the only thing that I would be subjected to is the smelliness of my neighbors and all of these monsters that are out to get me that could very well kill me, and I can't do anything about it. But, you know, if you're in some an inhabited civilization in Mass Effect, you can be a part of it. So, yeah, I just really like the idea of something that could possibly happen in our world. And the way that I always look at it is almost this split timeline thing, where it's like, well, what is the future of humanity? Are we going towards a Fallout timeline, like a Fallout sort of universe, or are we going towards a Mass Effect sort of universe? Because if Space Force is going to be a thing, please sign me up. I would love to be a part of it. Get me my Turian boyfriend. Get me my ridiculous weapons and, like, exploration and shit like that. Get me faster than light travel. I would love that. But anyway, so I think of that a lot of the time, and to imagine that our world could somehow be like one of those at some point brings me way closer to the game than it does with The Witcher or with other fantasy titles. And I know I started talking about Skyrim, but I know about The Witcher a little bit more than The Elder Scrolls, so I'm just going to keep referring to that. Where it's like, okay, it's this medieval type of scenario, so it already happened, but like we know that in medieval times there weren't monsters and stuff like that. Maybe people believe that there were, but there weren't actually monsters. There wasn't actually magic. You couldn't actually do any of these things. You were probably just gonna die in the Black Death at some point. So yeah, I mean, for me it's just all about that, and it might just be the way, like, you could call this a limitation of my imagination if you want to say that, because really it's just about how I can't imagine myself as like a mage, but I can imagine myself as like as a citizen of Rapture or something like that, or a citizen of Columbia, even if I'm not white. You know, just like those types of worlds where, I mean, I think it is like, I think you might be able to actually build a city underwater. It would be completely, horribly not cost effective and everything like that, but it's possible. I don't know about the floating city. I mean, they explain that away with the whole particle thing, which also I can buy into, because it's like, well, we don't actually, I mean, there's so much about physics that we don't know, so maybe it is possible to have a floating particle, who knows. And I do like the history of both times, where it's like, okay, well, one is in the early 19-teens, you know, and there's this whole history with that, where it's like, okay, you do have America in itself, and then you have Columbia, which is based on, you know, American exceptionalism and all of that good stuff. It's very, I mean, I say good, but you know, but it's based on fact. And you know, like, Booker is an ex-Pinkerton, he was at the Battle of Wounded Knee, all this cool stuff, where it kind of contextualizes him as a character. Whereas, you know, there's so much, like, when I started playing The Witcher, I had no idea who Geralt was. And you know, my friend, she was actually the one who she loves The Witcher, like, she has a Witcher tattoo and everything. So, and you should go follow her on Twitter. Her Twitter handle is Big Salty Boy with an OI. So go ahead and follow her. She's awesome. But she was the one who recommended The Witcher to me, and she was like, no, you don't need to know who Geralt is. You know, it kind of tells you the story before you start playing. But realistically, when I started playing the story, the only thing that it tells you is what a Witcher even is. And even then, it's kind of vague, where it's like, oh, they're cursed, and like, if they survive through childhood, then they can become a Witcher. But it's like, within the first hour or something like that, it's probably within the first like 3 hours, you make it to, I guess, you know, spoilers, you make it to Ciri's, like, biological father's castle. He's like the king of whatever, and that's why you're trying to go find Ciri. But he's asking you, like, while you're getting dressed or whatever, like, you get bathed and, like, you get your hair cut and all this other shit. Well, one of the servants is asking you, like, he's an attendant or something like that, and he's asking you, like, oh, what did you do in this, about this? Like, he's referencing things from the first 2 games, and I just had to randomly choose, because I didn't actually know what was happening. Like, I didn't understand what he was asking me, or who these people he was referring to even were. Like, I just chose random people, and I didn't even know if I agreed with them or not. And like, and that's also a product probably of just not playing the first 2 and just jumping into the third. And that's not even to say that that's fantasy. It's just, God, my argument is all over the place. I'm blaming it on the fact that I'm not feeling well. But it's like, okay, you can play any of the Bioshocks without playing, obviously you can play the first one, but you can play 2 or 3 without really having a clue as to what Rapture even is. Okay, so 2, probably a little more weird to play, but you kind of, like, all you really need to know about the game in the second one is that you're a big daddy, right? And you were separated from your little sister. So that's the game. You're trying to get her back, whatever. You wake up 10 years later, all this shit is going on, and like you can kind of pick up the story from there. With Infinite, you don't need to know anything about Rapture. Like, it's a lot of people argue that it's not really Bioshock, and I agree, but at the same time I love Infinite. So I will not argue that it's the best one, because I don't think that they're at all comparable. And one day I will do a rant on that, because actually I guess I could just go off right now. It's not like I have a script or anything. I can just start talking about it if I want to. But yeah, it's I don't think that they're comparable. Yes, it has the Bioshock title, and I feel comfortable in saying that it could be a Bioshock entry, but I'm not comfortable in comparing Infinite with the first one. It's just not fair to either game. It's a completely different type of game. I can say, like, yes. God, this is a really hard argument, honestly. And I will turn the question over to you. Do you think that Infinite is a good entry into it fits the Bioshock formula? Where, I mean, but then you have to define, like, what even is the Bioshock formula, because it's like, okay, you have basically, with the first two, you have this very grand idea, an almost philosophical idea, and you're basing an entire narrative on this idea that, you know, like the first one is about essentially the faults of individualism and capitalism. The second one is the faults of communism and collectivism, as it were, in a slightly less narratively pleasing way, because I mean, I didn't like Bioshock 2. It was fine, I guess. Like, I liked going back to Rapture and everything like that, but I didn't actually like the game because, okay, with the first one, the narrative is so great. It's just so well done. The twist is so well done, and you get the entire oomph of the story. You get the point of the story. But with Bioshock 2, it's just like any other first-person shooter, essentially. You're just playing as this person, and then it's like, oh, you know, you're seeing the woes of collectivism, but it's just all around you. It's not like you're really, I mean, I guess you're kind of a part of it, but not really. You know, you're just seeing, like, oh, this is what happens when, like, all of these people are in some sort of communal situation and listening to one person, and, like, you know, that's the whole Sophia Lamb type of deal. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like the second one was as narratively strong, and I don't think anybody would disagree with me saying that. It's like, okay, the first one is like, well, this is what happens when you blindly follow, or, like, you know, part of it is like, okay, yes, you're the individual, but really are you? You know, is free will really a thing? And that's questioning individuality. It's a really great way to question it. But then in the second one, it's like, you're not really, like, the point isn't really about you being an individual. It's like, you're just this guy who's, like, sent to go, like, you're trying to accomplish this goal. And, like, really, that's every first-person shooter. So, again, feel free to disagree with me, and again, I don't know, maybe I'm not articulating myself completely properly, but still. So anyway, what I'm saying is that the time period of things definitely contextualizes the character. So, you know, with Geralt and stuff like that, there's not all the context I completely missed. There's so much of the story that I completely didn't know about, so it didn't cement me as, like, you know, it didn't cement Geralt in my mind as this really cool, amazing person, because I didn't know his backstory. So, I mean, maybe I'm comparing apples to oranges here in the way that characters are built and stuff like that. And I mean, some people like this stuff, some people don't, and I could go on and on about it. Like, you know, I was just thinking about Metal Gear, and it's like, you know, people rely on the reputation of Metal Gear to play the games, which is, like, exactly why I would, because you know, the storyline is completely incomprehensible a lot of the time. So unless you're a huge Metal Gear fan, you're not really going to know what's going on. And so for me, where Metal Gear 2 and Metal Gear 3 were the only ones that I've ever picked up a controller and played, like I played some of Metal Gear 2 back when it came out years and years ago. I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and even then, like, I wasn't really supposed to play it. It was my cousin, so I would watch him play. And for some reason, he like could never get past the first level, you know, basically where you play a Solid Snake. So I've seen that opening like Hudson River scene like 500 times. I swear to God, I could probably like, I have memorized the entire scene by now. So a few months ago, I decided to try, like, we have the Metal Gear like collectors, you know, whatever edition it is, but it has Metal Gear 2 and 3. And so I tried 2 because that was the one that I grew up with, and oh my god, the camera angles were so wonky, I couldn't do it. It was ridiculous. But then my boyfriend tried Metal Gear 3, and like, back when I played Metal Gear Solid 2, back when I was a kid, it was just like, oh, here's this guy, Solid Snake, like, and like that was when Metal Gear was like a huge thing. So like there were bits and pieces of the story that I could pick up, and that's really how you're supposed to play Metal Gear, is like this bits and pieces type of thing. But then like seeing my boyfriend play 3, which goes back in time completely, like it was just ridiculous. It was like, okay, so who is this? Like, this guy looks exactly like Snake, but he's not Snake, and like the story is completely different, and the two have nothing to do with each other. And then like later on, like, you know, and this is in the midst of like all these other Metal Gears coming out. So I'm like, oh, so one of them is a clone, and like one of them is Big Boss, the other is Solid Snake, and like then there's a Liquid Snake, and then there's a Gas Snake, and I'm kidding, but it's, you know, there's just so much there that I couldn't follow. And again, it's just this whole contextualizing the character. It's so infuriating when it's like you want to buy into a narrative so badly, but you can't because you don't know anything about the main character. And I'm trying to find, like, you know, different examples of this. So Geralt is one, Snake is another. Okay, with Shepard, you choose Shepard's origin story in the first Mass Effect. So that's a little bit different, where it's like, I don't know. So like my Shepard was born on Mindwar, and like whenever something attacked or something like that, basically she was the only survivor. Like, she lost her whole family, and then at some point she joined the Alliance. I don't know where Mindwar is. You don't actually get to find out what it is or who's on it or whatever. Like, basically everybody on Mindwar was slaughtered except for Shepard. And Shepard actually did something brave. Like, she actually ended up like saving a bunch of people or something like that, which is why she got accepted into the Alliance. Something like that. But even when you don't get to see the actual origin story of the character, and you read about it and you hear about it, and you almost have like a choice in it, there's something nice about that. And, you know, going back, like I played the entire trilogy 2 years ago, and like that completely destroyed me when I finally finished it. And you know, obviously it does that to you, but I was gonna go play it again, and this time I wanted to have the Shepard that comes from Earth, because I want it to be more close to home. So I'm probably gonna go do that. Anyway, so my original point, who knows what it was, just like my feelings on sci-fi versus fantasy. And like, you know, you can argue back and forth which is better, which is more plausible, obviously which one is more plausible, but which one is more enjoyable. And it's a very subjective opinion. Do you prefer things where like you could actually see the world going in that way, or do you prefer these fantastical things that could never happen? And I would love to hear other people's commentary on this. Like I said, I'm definitely not right on anything. This is just my opinion. And hopefully you enjoyed this little rant today. I am gonna go lay down because I am just like the sickness just hit me like a train, so I feel a little nauseous and I'm a little feverish. So I'm gonna edit this video and then get myself to bed. I hope you all have a lovely week, and let me know what you think, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.